Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's top 10 worst villains of Star Trek. In this video I will count down my top 10 least favorite villains or antagonists from the Star Trek franchise. So this is a Patreon requested video requested by patron Tyler Cease. Thanks so much for your support. And so I guess the only ground rule I really have for this top 10 is that I'm excluding movies because I already did a video with my top 5 best and worst movie villains, so this is strictly for the TV shows, which does make a difference because I really wanted to put Nero on this list, but he's a movie villain, and that also counts for certain villain who appeared in a movie and a TV show. When I put them on this list, only looking at the TV show appearances and not the movie appearances, excluding the movies for this countdown. And of course this is also a companion piece. I did my top 15 best villains in Star Trek, so now it's time to do my top 10 worst. And of course this is just my humble opinion. So before I get into the top 10, I want to mention some honorable mentions. I'll just quickly run through a bunch of them, and then when I get to the top 3 honorable mentions, I'll get into a little bit more detail. So, first honorable mention is Charlie X from Charlie X. Next honorable mention is Tarkin from Exile. Next honorable mention is Peanut Hamper from multiple episodes of Lower Decks. Next honorable mention is Dr. Severin from The Way to Eden. Next honorable mention is Sylvia from Cat's Paw. Next honorable mention is Jev from Violations. Next honorable mention is Jack the Ripper from Wolf in the Fold. So, getting into my top honorable mentions, the first of those is Mullabach from Progress. This was the ultimate get off my screen character I talked about when I reviewed this episode. I absolutely can't stand him and his stupid stories, and I don't buy that Kira would risk her career to help him. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So yeah, and I do count him as a villain because I think he definitely was. Next honorable mention is Mariana from Alter Ego. Mariana, I think, was the name of the hologram. I can't remember the name of the actual person, if they ever even said it, who was like just using his weird communications array to use the hologram as a personal avatar, but then she had an obsession with Tuvok, and it was just a Fatal Attraction ripoff. She even went as far as to say, "I won't be ignored," or something along those lines, which is freaking ridiculous. Is one of the worst things I've ever seen. And the final honorable mention is Alice from Alice. Speaking of rip-offs of other movies, this is just a rip-off of the Stephen King adaptation Christine, and because it's a spaceship that Tom Paris becomes obsessed with, but then we actually see her, like, in his mind, it's just a live spaceship that's turning him evil. So dumb. Anyway, so let's get into my top 10 proper. Starting with my number 10, Martis Mazur from Rivals. This is a really dumb character. And I do count him as a villain because he's an antagonist to Quark, and he's the one that brings about this weird, unlucky balls that could destroy the station. It is just as dumb as it sounds. And he's supposed to be this expert con man, and yet he's conned he falls for a very obvious con at the start of the episode, and yeah, they just try to hammer home that he's the same species as Guinan over and over again by going, "It's a listener," or "Listening, aren't you listening?" Oh, you get it because they're listening. And the actor is good. It's, Prince Hunkerdink, but the character's shit. Anyway, so we get to my number 9, which is Lore, the evil twin trope brought to life. Now, I know some people might take issue with this one because I know some people like Lore. I used to like Lore when I was younger, but when I got older, I realized that it's just a cartoonish evil twin trope. I didn't like the episode Brothers, because that made him feel more real, but that was an outlier because normally in Data Lore was fucking ridiculous. He was just the evil. And same thing with Descent. Don't even get me started with Descent. That whole thing was stupid. And then his appearances on Star Trek Picard were a little bit better and weren't that bad, but still it did showcase how he is just a mustache twirly two-dimensional villain. So, next we'll get into my number 8, which is Harry Mudd. And yes, I definitely count him as a villain, because he's always an antagonist and a foil for Kirk. He, of course, appeared in multiple episodes of the original series, the animated series, and Star Trek Discovery. I actually didn't mind him all that much in Discovery, although the time loop episode, he was turned him into an out-and-out murderer, which kind of goes against his character. But I think Rainn Wilson did a better job than the original series. Just came off as your stereotypical. And the original series had several characters like this. I think it might have been common in the 60s. So I'm a scoundrel, which I just don't like. I'm not a fan of. And the first episode he appears in, of course, he's pimping out women to be wives or whatever to these minors. It's no, just no. Anyway, next we'll get to my number 7, which is Damon Bach. Die well, Captain. He's from 2 episodes of The Next Generation, and played by 2 different actors. And I will say the second actor at least was better, is the bald dude who was on Seinfeld. But he was useless. The first time, he was very obviously trying to manipulate Picard, and it was obvious to anyone in the world. And as I said, he came off as a two-dimensional villain. And then his second appearance, he had this weird, complicated plot to tell Picard that he had a son, trick Picard into thinking he had a son when it wasn't really his son, so he could kill his son, so he could have Picard believe as his son. And all Picard had to do was tell his underlings, hey, he's not doing this for profit, and then his plan was overthrown. His big elaborate plan. Such a dumb villain. But keeping in the topic of Ferengi, we'll get to my number 6, which is Brunt. Now, I know this one might ruffle some feathers because I think some people do like Brunt. I like Jeffrey Combs. He's a great actor. Amazing as Wayoom and Shran, but not Brunt. It's not his fault, to be clear, because he's still a great actor. It's just this is not an interesting character. In fact, it took me 3 or 4 episodes to even like know who this guy was, like because Quark and Rom would react, oh, it's Brunt. I'm like, who's Brunt again? Like what? Like because he's just such an insignificant character. He's just a whiny tax man or whatever, and he's just like, yeah, it's evil and conniving, and it's just in his dumb Frankie way. I just can't stand him. So next we'll get into my number 5, which is Narissa from Star Trek Picard, multiple episodes of season 1. So, and I would include her incestuous brother in this listing as well. They were both terrible. They were both terrible villains they're just stereotypical evil. And why do you have to have, a brother and sister that being incestuous? Like, it seems like they were like trying to leech off of Game of Thrones, doing it with Cersei and Jaime, and they were just trying to be like Game of Thrones, and it was obvious, and it didn't work, and these villains were not interesting at all, and it just came off as like two-dimensional and just, look at how evil I am, which is a common thing you'll find on my list. Anyway, because we'll get to my number 4, which is Osira from multiple episodes of Discovery season 3, and boy, she's probably the queen of mustache twirly two-dimensional villain. It's like, she was so fake. She was just flat out, I'm evil and I'm gonna do these evil things. I'm gonna kill my own underlings because I'm evil, and look at how evil I am, and aren't I being so evil? She was just flat, uninteresting. I did not give a crap about her. Anyway, we'll get to my number 3 worst villain in Star Trek, and that is Ronan. And if you're wondering who Ronan is, the Space Ghost from Sub Rosa. Not the Space Ghost, but a Space Ghost. He doesn't have a talk show. But, the one who was sexually assaulting Beverly Crusher and used some mind trick to make her act like she's like totally on drugs and obsessed with him, and then he reanimates her dead grandmother and says, Beverly. I don't know if I even need to mention why this is such a terrible villain. That whole episode was just a terrible joke. It is just how anyone could take that seriously is beyond me. Anyway, we will now get to my number 2, which is Adam Sung from that masterpiece known as Star Trek Picard Season 2. This was just such a terrible season. It's like impossible for me to articulate just how bad this season was. It's one of the worst television I've ever seen, and this two-dimensional flat excuse to bring Brent Spiner back playing yet another freaking ancestor of Soon. There's so many Soons, and they all look just like Brent Spiner. And this one didn't make any sense. Like, his motivation doesn't make any sense. Like, at first they said he's trying to like find this cure from a disease, and then all of a sudden he becomes this like two-dimensional villain. It's like, I'm gonna run Picard over with my car. Like, it's so terrible. It's so terrible. Anyway. Oh yeah, and of course at the end of the season they have to say, I'm going to move on to my next project, Project Khan. Wink, wink. So anyway, we will now get to my number 1 worst villain in Star Trek, and that is, as anyone familiar with my channel will not be surprised, I am saying the number 1 worst villain is the Borg Queen from multiple episodes of Voyager and Star Trek Picard, because it just can't let this damn character die. In Voyager, she's just a two-dimensional villain, as I said, a literal cartoon villain who goes, Janeway! Every time she sees, just like a cartoon villain every time she sees her. And she has weird, stupid, convoluted plots to like create a... She apparently put 709 on Voyager, like, yeah, fucking right. And in order to gather information about the humans to create a virus that will wipe out humanity or get them assimilated. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. And because she's so determined to assimilate Earth, yet later we find out they have a huge fucking hub that can instantly send ships anywhere in the galaxy. So if they really wanted Earth that badly, why haven't they sent a fleet to instantly get Earth? Like, this doesn't make any bit of sense. Her motivation, like, she's worse. I would call her a James Bond villain, but I think that's being insulting to James Bond villains. And I would call her a cartoon villain, but I think that's being insulting to cartoons. Like, she's way worse. Her motivations are so convoluted, they don't make any sense. She's flat uninteresting, acts like a two-dimensional character, and her appearances in Picard were not any better. Don't even get me started on that whole reveal at the end of Picard Season 3. That was just an even bigger mess. So no, this is definitely the worst character and worst villain, I should say, in Star Trek. So that's it for my top 10 worst villains of Star Trek. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover every episode of Star Trek currently in Season 4 of Deep Space Nine and Season 2 of Voyager. And I do many other videos on Star Trek and other shows as well, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that, and thanks a lot for watching.